She married into a powerful family that never wanted her. From the very first day, she was treated like an outsider. Mocked at dinners, blamed for failures she didn't cause, and constantly reminded that she didn't belong among wealth and royalty. Every smile she forced hid a deeper wound. Every silence carried a scream she never voiced. Unknown to them, someone was always watching. The royal family's billionaire bodyguard, cold, disciplined, untouchable, noticed the quiet humiliation she endured behind closed doors. He saw the bruises no one asked about. He heard the whispers that stopped when she entered the room. And he recognized a danger the family was too arrogant to see. Then one night, everything changed. At a high-profile royal gathering, just as they prepared to publicly disgrace her one final time, the billionaire bodyguard made a move that froze the entire hall. A single action, one command, one revelation that turned laughter into fear. Secrets buried for years surfaced. Power shifted hands. And the woman they thought they had broken became the center of a storm no one could stop. Because the man they believed was only there to protect the throne was about to destroy it for her. Hello, lovely viewers. Where are you watching from today? I hope you're doing amazing. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me bring you more captivating stories like this one. Now let's dive into a tale of hidden strength, forbidden protection, and a revelation that will shake everything you thought you knew. Her name was Ella, and she had married into the Thornwell family believing love could conquer everything. How naive that seemed now. 2 years ago, she'd met James Thornwell at a charity gala. Charming, attentive, different from the cold elite she'd grown up avoiding. He promised her a partnership, a real marriage. But the moment she crossed the threshold of Thornwell Manor, his family made their position clear. She was an intruder in their world of old money and older secrets. Lady Margaret Thornwell, James's mother, ruled the household with an iron smile. Every morning, she reminded Ella of her unfortunate background. A middle-class teacher's daughter who'd somehow trapped her precious son. James's sister, Charlotte, was worse. Her cruelty came wrapped in concern. You look tired, Ella. Maybe the pressure is too much. Always in front of others. Always calculated. James himself had transformed. The man who once looked at her with warmth now avoided her eyes at dinner parties, let his mother's barbs land unchallenged, and spent more nights at his office than in their shared bedroom. Ella's deepest fear wasn't the humiliation. It was disappearing entirely. Becoming so small, so invisible, that one day she'd look in the mirror and see nothing at all. But she'd notice something else. Something they hadn't. Roman Castellano, the family's head of security, watched everything. Former military, now one of the wealthiest private security contractors in Europe, he'd been hired to protect the Thornwells from threats they couldn't even imagine. 6'3", dark-eyed, silent as shadows, he moved through the manor like he owned it, not them. And he saw her, really saw her. When Margaret accidentally spilled wine on Ella's dress at last month's fundraiser, Roman appeared instantly with a cloth, his jaw tight. When Charlotte locked her out on the balcony during a winter storm, Roman found her shivering an hour later, his coat already in his hands, his eyes blazing with barely contained fury. He never spoke of it, never acknowledged the pattern. But Ella had begun to wonder. What was Roman Castellano really protecting? And who were the Thornwells really afraid of? The anniversary gala was supposed to be Ella's final humiliation. Margaret had planned it for weeks, 2 years of James and Ella's happy marriage, broadcast to 500 of the country's most powerful families. Behind the scenes, Ella had overheard the real plan. A public announcement of separation. James would blame her instability. Charlotte had already prepared sympathetic quotes for the press. They would erase her in front of everyone. Ella stood in her dressing room, staring at the emerald gown they'd chosen for her. Beautiful and binding, like everything in this house. Her hands trembled as she fastened the clasp. A knock. Roman entered without waiting for permission, his presence filling the small space. "You don't have to go down there," he said quietly. She met his eyes in the mirror. "Yes, I do." "Why?" "Because if I run, they win. If I disappear, I was never here at all." Something shifted in his expression, respect maybe, or recognition. He moved closer, and for the first time, she noticed he wasn't wearing his usual tactical gear. Tonight, he wore a tailored black suit that probably cost more than her childhood home. "Then you should know something." His voice dropped. "I wasn't hired to protect them. I was hired to investigate them." Ella's breath caught. "What?" 3 months ago, Your husband's business partner died in an accident. Before he died, he hired me. He suspected the Thornwells of fraud, blackmail, and worse. He wanted proof. And did you find it? Roman's smile was dangerous. Yes. And tonight, I'm going to help you use it. He extended his hand. Do you trust me, Ella? She looked at his outstretched palm, calloused, strong, steady. Everything James's had never been. I don't even know you, she whispered. You know I'm the only one who's been paying attention. Downstairs, she could hear the first guests arriving. Laughter. Music. The sound of her execution being prepared. Ella took his hand. What do? We burn it all down. The ballroom glittered like a cage made of diamonds. Ella descended the stairs with Roman 2 steps behind her. Close enough to matter, far enough to maintain appearances. Every eye turned to watch. Margaret's smile was predatory. James stood beside his mother, rehearsing his lines, no doubt. But tonight, Ella wasn't prey. Stay close to me, Roman murmured as they reached the floor. When I signal, head to the library. I've left something for you there. What signal? His hand barely brushed the small of her back. You'll know. The evening crawled forward. Ella smiled through conversations with people who'd ignore her tomorrow. She accepted champagne from servers who pitied her. And all the while, Roman moved through the crowd like a shadow, positioning himself, watching, waiting. Then James approached, his face flushed with wine and nerves. Ella, we need to talk. Mother wants. Your wife looks stunning tonight, James. Roman appeared beside them, his presence imposing. You're a fortunate man. James bristled. This is a private conversation, Castellano. Is it? Roman's gaze was steel. Because from where I stand, you've made your private business very public. Tension crackled between them. Guests nearby quieted, sensing conflict. Margaret swept in, her laugh tinkling like breaking glass. Roman, darling, surely you have actual security concerns to attend to? This is family business. Funny you should mention security. Roman pulled out his phone, tapped once. I've been reviewing your family's business dealings. Fascinating reading. Margaret's smile froze. I have no idea what you're. The ballroom screens, meant for displaying the anniversary slideshow, flickered to life. Bank statements, forged documents, email chains discussing bribes, payoffs, and the suspicious death of James's business partner. Gasps rippled through the crowd. What the hell is this? James lunged for Roman, but 2 of Roman's team materialized, blocking him. Charlotte's face had gone white. Mother, what did you do? But Ella wasn't watching them anymore. She was watching Roman, who turned to her with a slight nod. The signal. She slipped away as chaos erupted, security teams clashing, journalists pulling out phones, Margaret screaming about lawsuits and lies. The library was quiet. Dark. On the desk sat a folder with her name on it. Inside, divorce papers. Already signed by James, dated 3 months ago, before they'd even begun planning this gala. Proof he'd been planning to discard her all along. And beneath them, bank account information in her name. Transfers. Enough money to start over anywhere in the world. Roman appeared in the doorway. I told you. I've been paying attention. Why? Ella's voice broke. Why would you do this for me? He moved closer, his eyes intense. Because I've spent 6 months watching them destroy you piece by piece. And I've spent 6 months wanting to destroy them for it. He paused. And because from the moment I saw you, I knew you were the strongest person in this entire house. You just needed someone to believe it. Outside, sirens wailed. The gala had become a crime scene. Roman extended his hand again. Come with me. Let me show you what freedom looks like. Ella looked at the folder, then at him. This man who'd been her silent guardian, who'd seen her when she was invisible. She took his hand. Roman's penthouse overlooked the city like a throne above the world. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Minimalist luxury. The kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Ella stood at the glass, watching emergency lights flash at Thornwell Manor in the distance. They'll come after us. Let them try. Roman poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. The evidence is already with federal prosecutors. Margaret's accounts are frozen. James is facing charges. She should feel triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. I don't understand why you did this. You don't even know me. Ella. His voice was low, careful. There's something I need to tell you. The way he said it made her stomach drop. What? Roman set down his glass. My real name is Roman Castellano Thornwell. I'm James's cousin. The one the family pretends doesn't exist. The room tilted. What? 20 years ago, my mother, Margaret's sister, married a man Margaret deemed unworthy. She cut us off completely, erased us from the family. My mother died when I was 15, penniless and broken, while Margaret lived in that manner. His jaw clenched. I built my fortune from nothing, and I've spent the last 5 years planning to take everything from them. Ella stepped back. So this was revenge? I was just, what? A convenient pawn. No. He moved toward her. It started as revenge. But then I met you and... You used me. Her voice cracked. Everything you said, everything you did, it was all manipulation. I saved you. For yourself. Not for me. Tears burned her eyes. I thought someone finally saw me. But you just saw an opportunity. That's not true. He reached for her, but she flinched away. I need you to leave. Ella, get out. Roman stared at her, something raw and broken in his expression. Then he turned and walked to the door. Paused. The penthouse is yours. Everything in your name. The accounts, the properties, all of it. It was always meant to be yours, regardless of what happened between us. I don't want your guilt money. It's not guilt. His voice was barely a whisper. It's the only way I know how to show you that you mattered, that you weren't a pawn, that somewhere along the way, protecting you became more important than destroying them. He left before she could respond. Ella sank to the floor, the city lights blurring through her tears. She'd escaped one cage, only to discover she'd been in another all along. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think Roman saved you? Ask him what happened to his mother. Ask him what he's really capable of. See, Charlotte, even now poisoning everything. But the question lingered, cold and terrible. What else had Roman lied about? 3 days passed. Ella didn't leave the penthouse. The news was everywhere. Thornwell Empire collapses. Fraud, corruption exposed. Margaret arrested. James in custody. Charlotte turned state's witness to save herself. Ella should feel vindicated. Instead, she felt adrift. She'd tried calling Roman twice. Both times it went to voicemail. She told herself she didn't care. She told herself she was better off alone. She was lying. On the 4th morning, someone knocked. Hope flared, then died when she opened the door. Margaret stood there, somehow diminished without her jewels and designer clothes. Prison had aged her a decade. How did you get out? Ella breathed. Bail. For now. Margaret's smile was bitter. May I come in? I promise I'm not here to hurt you. Against her better judgment, Ella stepped aside. Margaret moved to the window where Ella had stood that first night. He told you about his mother, didn't he? That you abandoned her. Yes. Did he tell you the rest? Margaret turned, and for the first time, Ella saw genuine pain in her eyes. My sister didn't die broken, Ella. She killed herself. But not because I cut her off. Ella's blood went cold. Roman's father, the man I supposedly deemed unworthy, was abusive, violent. I begged my sister to leave him. I offered her money, protection, everything. She refused. Said she loved him. Margaret's voice cracked. When she died, Roman was 15. Old enough to believe his father's lies, that I'd driven her to it. That I was the monster. Why are you telling me this? Because Roman isn't who you think he is. His father trained him well. Use people, manipulate them, discard them. He didn't save you, Ella. He weaponized you. Margaret stepped closer. Those accounts in your name? They're tied to offshore companies under investigation. The properties? Seized assets from illegal dealings. Roman's making you complicit in his crimes. You're lying. But Ella's voice wavered. Am I? Then why hasn't he contacted you? Why did he disappear the moment the job was done? Margaret pulled out a folder. These are the real documents. Roman's real business dealings. Look at them and tell me I'm lying. The folder dropped on the table between them like a bomb. He's not coming back for you, dear. He never was. Margaret moved to the door. But I thought you deserved to know the truth before the federal investigation finds you. She left Ella alone with the folder. Inside, evidence that painted Roman not as a savior, but as something far darker. Someone who'd built his empire on the ashes of others. Someone who'd orchestrated everything, including Ella's marriage to James years ago. Ella's phone rang. Roman. Finally. She stared at his name on the screen, her finger hovering over the answer button. The call went to voicemail. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the city, and Ella had never felt more alone. Ella spent that night in the folder, following the paper trail Margaret left behind. Bank accounts. Shell companies. transactions that didn't make sense. Unless you knew what you were looking for. At 3 a.m., she found it, a single inconsistency. A date that was wrong. A signature that didn't match. Margaret's evidence was manufactured. Expertly done, but manufactured nonetheless. One final manipulation from a desperate woman. Ella grabbed her phone and finally listened to Roman's voicemail. Ella, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But Margaret will come for you. She always destroys what she can't control. Don't trust anything she gives you. Please. I'm at the Harbor District warehouse, the old Castellano building. If you want the real truth, come find me. If you don't, I understand. The message was from yesterday, before Margaret's visit. He'd known. Somehow he'd known. Ella grabbed her coat. The warehouse was dark, abandoned. Rain hammered the metal roof as Ella stepped inside, her heart pounding. Roman. Movement in the shadows. He emerged slowly, and she barely recognized him, bruised, bloodied, exhausted. You came, he said, almost disbelieving. Margaret showed me. Fake documents. I know. She's gotten desperate. He leaned against a pillar, wincing. James's people found me 2 days ago. Margaret's final play. If she's going down, she wants me dead. You're hurt. I've had worse. Ella closed the distance between them. Tell me the truth. All of it. Did you orchestrate my marriage to James? No. Roman met her eyes. I didn't even know James had married until I took the security job. That was chance, Ella. Terrible, beautiful chance. Then what about your mother? The real story. Pain flashed across his face. Margaret told you her version. The truth is somewhere in between. My father was cruel. Margaret did abandon us. My mother did take her own life. And I've spent 20 years not knowing who to blame, so I blamed everyone. He took a shuddering breath. Including myself for not being enough to save her. Roman, but you were different. Watching you survive that family, seeing your strength. It reminded me that some people are worth saving. Worth fighting for. His voice broke. I fell in love with you, Ella. That wasn't part of any plan. That was just you. The words hung between them, raw and true. The account's in my name, Ella said quietly. Are they really illegal? No. They're clean, I made sure of it. But Margaret will try to convince investigators otherwise. That's why I need you to leave the country tonight. I have a plane waiting. And you. I have to finish this. Make sure Margaret can't hurt anyone else. Not without me. Ella straightened. I've run from enough fights. This time, I stand and finish it. Roman searched her face. You could have everything, freedom, safety, a new life. I have everything right here. She took his hand. Let's end this. Together. For the first time in days, Roman smiled. Together. Outside, the storm raged. But inside the warehouse, 2 people who'd been broken by the same family made a choice. To stop running and start fighting back. The final battle was coming. And this time, they'd face it as one. The federal courthouse was a fortress of marble and justice. Inside, Margaret Thornwell's trial had become the spectacle of the year. Cameras, reporters, protesters. The woman who'd ruled high society now sat in the defendant's chair, her empire in ruins. But Margaret had one last card to play. The prosecution calls Ella Thornwell to the stand. Ella stood, Roman's hand squeezing hers once before she walked forward. They'd planned for this. Margaret's lawyers would try to paint Ella as complicit, a gold digger who'd conspired with Roman to frame an innocent family. What they didn't know was that Ella had something Margaret never expected. The truth. Mrs. Thornwell, Margaret's lawyer began, his smile oily. Isn't it true that you and Mr. Castellano conspired to destroy my client's family for financial gain? No, Ella said calmly. But you benefited tremendously from their downfall. Properties, accounts. I benefited from escaping an abusive family that treated me as disposable. Ella's voice was steady. But I didn't come here to talk about money. I came to talk about Sarah Castellano. Margaret's face went white. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, this is relevant to establishing motive and pattern of behavior. Proceed, the judge said. Ella turned to face Margaret directly. 20 years ago, you didn't just abandon your sister. You actively sabotaged every attempt she made to leave her abusive husband. You blocked her access to family funds. You threatened to take custody of Roman if she divorced. You wanted her to suffer for defying you. That's absurd, Margaret hissed. Is it? Roman stood from the gallery, holding up a document. Because I have the court order you filed trying to declare my mother unfit. I have the emails you sent her employer getting her fired. I have everything, Aunt Margaret. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. Margaret's lawyer was scrambling. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. What's irregular? The prosecutor interrupted. Is that we've just been handed evidence of a 20-year pattern of psychological abuse and manipulation. Evidence that directly supports the charges against Mrs. Thornwell. But Ella wasn't finished. There's something else. James isn't Margaret's biological son. The room went silent. What? James lunged forward from his own seat, restrained by bailiffs. Ella pulled out her own folder. The real investigation Roman had conducted. Margaret's sister, Sarah, gave birth to twins 28 years ago. She gave one child to her sister Margaret, who couldn't have children, on the condition Margaret would provide a better life. That child was James. Margaret stood, shaking with rage. You have no proof. Birth certificates, DNA tests, hospital records. Roman approached the bench, handing everything to the judge. James is my twin brother, and you've spent his entire life lying to him, using him, molding him into your weapon while you discarded me. James's face was ashen. Mother, don't call me that. Margaret shrieked, her composure finally shattered. I gave you everything. I made you into something while that woman raised her bastard in poverty. You owe me. I owe you nothing. James's voice was hollow, broken. My entire life has been a lie. The judge's gavel came down hard. Mrs. Thornwell, you're being held in contempt. Bailiff. But Margaret lunged across the courtroom, not at the judge or the lawyers, but at Ella. You destroyed everything. You were nothing, and you destroyed. Roman caught her mid-stride, his grip iron. No, you destroyed everything yourself. Ella just made sure everyone finally saw it. Security swarmed. Margaret was dragged away, screaming threats and curses. The prosecutor approached the bench. Your Honor, in light of this new evidence, the state requests an expanded investigation into child trafficking, fraud, and conspiracy charges. Granted. It was over. Not just the trial, everything. The Thornwell empire, built on lies and cruelty, collapsed under the weight of its own corruption. Outside the courthouse, James found them on the steps. He looked lost, younger than his 28 years. I'm sorry, he said to Ella. For all of it. Ella studied the man she'd once loved, or thought she loved. I forgive you, James. But forgiving isn't forgetting. Build a better life. Be better than her. He nodded, tears in his eyes, then turned to Roman. Brother. Brother, Roman echoed. They didn't embrace. The wounds were too fresh. But there was acknowledgement, a beginning, perhaps, of something that might one day become healing. As James walked away, Roman pulled Ella close. It's really over. It's really over, she whispered. Around them, cameras flashed. The story would dominate headlines for months. But Ella didn't care about headlines anymore. She cared about the man whose arms were around her. The man who'd seen her when she was invisible. The man who'd taught her that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help. What now? Roman asked. Ella smiled. Now, we figure out who we are without them. I already know who I am with you, he said softly. I'm home. She kissed him there on the courthouse steps, in front of the cameras and the world, claiming her happiness publicly the same way she'd once been humiliated publicly. But this time she was choosing it, owning it, living it. 6 months later, Ella stood in the garden of her childhood home. Bought back with her own money, restored with her own hands. The house where her teacher father had raised her with love and books and the belief that kindness mattered. She'd almost forgotten what that felt like. The flowers look good, Roman said, coming up behind her with 2 glasses of lemonade. He'd traded his tactical gear for jeans and a simple shirt. Domesticity suited him. You mean the flowers you planted look good? Ella corrected, taking a glass. I still can't keep anything alive. You kept yourself alive in that house for 2 years. I think you're better at nurturing than you believe. She leaned into him, comfortable in a way she'd never been with James. Have you heard from him? He's in therapy. Rebuilding. He donated most of his inheritance to domestic violence charities. Roman paused. He asked if we'd have dinner sometime. No pressure. Maybe, Ella said softly. Someday. Margaret was serving 15 years. Charlotte had moved to Europe, a shell of her former self. The Thornwell Manor had been sold, its contents auctioned for charity. But Ella didn't think about them much anymore. She'd written a book instead. Her story, her truth, her survival. It became a bestseller. The royalties funded a foundation for women escaping abusive relationships. She'd turned her pain into purpose. Ella. Roman's voice held a note she hadn't heard before. Nervous, maybe. She turned to find him on one knee, a simple ring in his hand. I know it's only been 6 months. I know we've been through hell and probably need more therapy than anyone on earth. His smile was crooked, genuine. But I've spent my entire life preparing for battles, building walls, keeping everyone at a distance. And then you walked into my life and taught me that the bravest thing you can do is let someone in. Tears blurred her vision. I don't want a grand wedding or a spectacle. I just want you. Every day. Every argument. Every quiet morning. Every messy, beautiful, real moment. He took a shaky breath. Will you marry me? Not because of revenge or obligation or anything else. Just because we choose each other. Ella sank to her knees in front of him, taking his face in her hands. You were the first person who ever really saw me, who believed I was strong enough to survive, who trusted me to fight beside you. She kissed him softly. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, modest, perfect, real, and pulled her into his arms. Later, as the sun set over her garden, they sat on the porch swing her father had built decades ago. Roman's arm around her shoulders, her head on his chest, the world finally quiet. What do you think happens next? Ella asked. Whatever we want, Roman said. That's the beauty of freedom. She smiled, closing her eyes. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Wasn't bracing for humiliation or pain or loss. She was just happy. The woman they'd tried to break had not only survived, she'd built something beautiful from the ashes. A life of her own choosing. Love on her own terms. A future that belonged to no one but herself. And that, Ella thought as Roman pressed a kiss to her hair, was the greatest victory of all. Thank you so much for watching. If you love this story of resilience, revenge, and finding love in the darkest places, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. I've got so many more captivating tales coming your way. Drop a comment and let me know what you thought. Where are you watching from? Until next time, remember, you're stronger than anyone who ever tried to break you.